Have you ever felt that burning desire for vengeance? That uncontrolled rage when someone wrongs you, leaving you craving to make them pay? Most simply strike back with brute force or hurl petty insults. But the truly powerful know there is a more devastating way, through unshakable stoicism and strategic disengagement. By mastering the following tactics, you will conduct psychological warfare to systematically upend your enemy without lifting a finger. 1. The silent treatment. Your foe expects an eruption of hostility. Negativity is their narcissistic fuel, fueling their perception of power over you. Deny them this by exuding an aura of unconcerned indifference. No matter how vicious the provocation, refuse to be visibly ruffled. Maintain unbreakable poise and emotional control. Act as if their antics are meaningless distractions, barely registering a footnote in your consciousness. This stoic demeanor will bewilder and enrage them. They will escalate desperately, ravenous for that hit of emotional validation. But you remain unhurried, radiating a calm assessment that their feeble tantrum warrants zero energy investment from you. Their blazing need for significance cannot be gratified by your supreme unimpressed stillness. Steadily, their desperation will curdle into bewildered impotence. Internally, channel the mindset of an unflappable parent toward a rampaging toddler's tantrum. This meltdown poses no genuine threat. It's simply pathetic desperation for attention. With unflinching equanimity, deprive them of that ego candy. Their petulant power play becomes a comical failure when met with your composed indifference. 2. Deceptive compliance. While steely indifference denies them the drama they crave, temporarily appearing to acquiesce can manipulate them into overconfidence. Adopt a deceptively yielding posture, hazing them into believing their aggression has cowed you. This illusion of victory makes them feel potent, luring their ego into a false sense of supremacy and control. On a surface level, your body language aligns with their deluded perception, downcast eyes, slumped shoulders, a sheepish facade, yet inwardly you remain unbroken. This mask simply buys you strategic time and space to plan their systematic destruction. Like a masterful martial artist, you conserve energy by selectively retreating, only to strike with ruthless precision later. As they prance around gloating over their presumed triumph, they expose their psychological blind spots and insecurities. Observe closely, archiving every vulnerability as ammunition for your inevitable counterattack. Before long, the very ego they relish in will become their greatest weakness. Having conned them into overconfident complacency through feigned submission, their bloated arrogance births perfect openings for you to strike mercilessly once ready. 3. Redefining their reality. Armed with knowledge of their deepest anxieties and distorted values, you can start dismantling their ego's very architecture through radical reframing. Rather than meeting their hostility head-on, you will undermine and distort the very meanings and motivations behind their aggression. For instance, if your enemy prides themselves on wealth and status, reframe their grandstanding materialism as a tragically unoriginal cliché. Recast their endless boasting about possessions as the stunted mentality of a toddler clinging to toys. Depict their flaunted status symbols as the hollow trophies of insecurity and a life devoid of higher purpose. If their hostility stems from ideological arrogance, introduce jarring paradoxes that undermine their assumed moral superiority. Pose thought experiments illuminating irresolvable contradictions in their belief systems. Compel them to confront the invisible boundaries constraining their self-righteousness, as mere indoctrinated prejudice no more absolute than the dogmas they demonize. Essentially, you reshape the entire context around their most deeply held values, sabotaging the very identity codes that once inspired their belligerence. By distorting how they perceive their own motivations, you instigate disorienting self-doubt. Their brazen hostility sours into corrosive bewilderment over who they even are anymore. 4. Becoming their mirror. Few things unsettle people more than having their most irritating tics and mannerisms exaggeratedly mirrored back at them. Amplify every grating gesture and vocal affectation your enemy exhibits until your imitation reaches an obnoxious, even humorous extreme. If they smack their lips or click their tongue in an annoying way, mirror those sounds tenfold until the echoes engulf them in agitation. Mimic any pompous vocal fry, nasal sneers, fidgeting or scratching habits with escalating absurdity. Maintain unsettling eye contact throughout. At first, they may dismiss this as childish mockery, but persevere tirelessly while mirroring their patterned conduct with dramatic overemphasis. The relentless forced confrontation conditions them to recoil from stimuli they could previously ignore. You rewrite their neurology to make their own behaviors abhorrent to experience. 5. Outrageous dishonesty. When defiance fails, use overacted respect to subvert your foe's certainties. Douse them in exaggerated flattery, tricking them into trusting you before covertly injecting insidious doubt. Shower them with over-the-top deference, admiration, and credulous awe of their perceived dominance. Act as their most sycophantic minion, inflating their ego to induce overconfidence in your contrived worship. Then, with surgical precision, lace your reverence with subtle discordant notes that contradict their dogmas. Pose innocuous-seeming questions that smuggle in cognitive dissonance under a guise of naive curiosity. Slowly interject plausible alternatives that challenge their beliefs with seeming harmlessness. As you gain their unsuspecting trust through obsequiousness, these splinters of doubt take root and grow into strangling ideological vines. Without realizing it, you erode every belief they held as unassailable, fostering creeping self-doubt. 6. Diminishing their influence. If your adversary has genuine charisma capable of swaying audiences, neutralize their gravitational pull before it reinvigorates followers against you. Draft a detailed catalogue of their inevitable flaws, quirks, stumbles, and mediocre moments. Note every conversational gaffe, awkward mannerism, bad habit, and compromising indiscretion. Exhaustively log evidence of their imperfect mundane humanity and lapses of gravitas that undermine their deified aura. Strategically release these damaging glimpses behind the curtain, sharing proof of their pedestrian reality to defame their mystique. Casually reference the unimpressive stains on their character with deadpan delivery. Soon their audience cannot metabolize rhetoric through an idealized lens. You reframe this fallen idol as an unglamorous parade of relatable failings, demolishing the fantastical pedestal their influence relies upon. Their divine gravitas dissolves. 7. Calculated embarrassment. To obliterate any remaining shred of poise, disseminate humiliating recordings capturing your foe's most cringeworthy moments. Unearth clips of them making utter fools of themselves through arrogance, drunkenness, hypocritical contradictions, or social blunders. Splice together a cringeworthy composite reel of their most unattractive behavior. Overlay regrettable audio of them making outrageous verbal gaffes, burping, raging like maniacs, lying crudely, or speaking in mortifying streams of unconscious ID. Ensure these lampooning supercuts go viral across every platform to bombard their entire social sphere with overwhelming second-hand embarrassment. Kill any remaining respect as you eradicate their public dignity. Reduced to a figure of widespread mockery, no one can take them seriously again. 8. Deconstructive psychoanalysis, exposing their insecurities. Having neutralized your foe's external influences and public credibility, now reverse your assault inwardly through relentless psychoanalytical deconstruction of their deepest insecurities and flaws. Dissect their every choice, behavior, and motivation through the most ungenerous psychological lenses possible. Frame their arrogance as a fragile overcompensation mechanism for likely childhood trauma, emotional neglect, and disrupted attachment issues stemming from dysfunctional parenting. Depict their pursuit of wealth and status as a vapid attempt to fill an insatiable spiritual void born from lack of genuine self-love and perpetual feelings of unworthiness. Theorize that their hostile outbursts emerge from deep reservoirs of repressed anger and petty grievances they remain in tormented denial over addressing. Essentially, you systematically recast their entire persona as a brittle defense personification held together by profound neuroses, maladaptive coping mechanisms, and unhealed psychological scars. Concoct plausible narratives about the self-loathing and inner emptiness fueling their antagonistic facade. Piece together a full psychobiography ascribing the most unflattering Freudian explanations to their every insecurity and self-sabotaging behavior. Once you plant these seeds of deconstructive psychoanalysis into the minds of those around them, The mystique of their persona unravels irreversibly. No one can view them as a figure deserving respect anymore. Their intimidating mystique forever shattered, the unmasked human behind the curtain becomes an object of pity, just a tragically broken shell overcompensating through delusional egotism. Their internal world is now hopelessly laid bare. 9. Releasing compromising information. While deconstructing their persona through amateur analysis proves potent, possessing genuine classified compromising materials on your foe yields the nuclear option to annihilate them. Through careful investigation or covert surveillance, unearth the most damaging information possible about your enemy's best hidden indiscretions, addictions, crimes, and degenerate behavior. Obtain humiliating footage of them engaging in moral atrocities, taboo fetishes, racist, sexist tirades, drug, alcohol abuse, illicit affairs, fraud, any reprehensible conduct that would catastrophically demolish their reputation and credibility. Accumulate as much incriminating data as you can, steadily adding more damaging artifacts into your haul of compromat ammunition. Then, through an anonymous server and systematic cryptography, begin strategically leaking this information into the world a few pieces at a time. Disperse it widely across every social media platform and into the inboxes of their closest contacts so it becomes inescapable. Let the revelations slowly drip with agonizing dramatic tension while their world unravels mockery and animosity. With each new leaked item, their pleas for mercy and context fall on deafened ears as their true repugnant nature is dragged into the disinfecting light. Deny them any refuge as the final ruinous bombshells drop, audio recordings, videos, documents, and more that obliterate every last pillar of their reputation and dignity. They become a destitute pariah, abandoned by all. 10. Erasing their existence. At last, to put the tormented husk of your enemy out of its misery, you must pursue the path of their utter spiritual and mimetic erasure from this plane. A mere existence of public mockery and infamy cannot satisfy. They must vanish into the ether as an absolute unperson. First, leverage any remaining platforms to widely promulgate a message that all association with this figure must be considered unforgivably radioactive. Direct networks to blackball them from all future opportunities while erasing their previous accomplishments from recorded reality. Their names must be struck from every institutional record as if they never existed. Then comes the meticulous process of suppressing and eradicating any lingering digital artifacts about their existence. Employ mercenaries if necessary to relentlessly scour and deplatform any resurfacing discussion until their identity evaporates from all chronicled archives, as if courtesy wiped by Orwellian revision. In the wake of this obsessive suppression, they stop having a personality and stop existing in culture. No acknowledgement of their banished being can remain. Their heritage becomes an utter possibility void, a null truth overwritten into perpetual, undocumented oblivion. Embrace this pursuit with religious zeal to disintegrate every last trace. Only once they undergo this second death of collective erasure do you accomplish Stoic victory. You obliterate them from the face of this earth. 11. Invalidate their intimacies. Undermine their closest bonds by insinuating yourself as a sleeper agent into their inner circle. Over months or years, cultivate deceptively warm personal rapport with their confidants through exquisite manipulation. Once their trust vests in you, begin sowing seeds of doubt about your foe's true character behind a veil of restrained concern. Humanize your subversion through conspicuously never making directly damning allegations. Simply divulge honest accountings of their smaller, unattractive behaviors and off-putting patterns you cannot help noticing. Judiciously voice disappointment at their petty, frustrating quirks as someone clearly on their side. As these validated critiques gradually accumulate in their intimates' minds, you insidiously unravel perceptions of the complete person behind the mystique. Erode their credibility and reliability through plausible misgivings until these closest associates see your framed truth. Their friend is disappointingly mundane, emotionally stunted, and increasingly alienating. 12. Engineered self-destruction. Through covert manipulation of their behaviors and external conditioning, you can induce enemy casualties by provoking them into self-destruction without ever explicitly manifesting an open conflict. Study their core values, attachments, and deepest superstitions to identify key vulnerability tendrils that, when pulled strategically, shatter their fragile ego construct. You can secretly manipulate your enemy's environment and the people around them to mentally destabilize them without directly confronting them yourself. Place things around them that subconsciously make them afraid of death or worry about cosmic punishment, preying on their superstitions. Take advantage of societal pressures and situations that reinforce their deepest insecurities about their appearance and sense of not being good enough. Get other people close to them to pretend to be their friends, but actually treat them in emotionally abusive ways behind the scenes. Have these fake friends act cruelly and lie to them so they question what is real and what isn't. Through these covert mind games, messing with their environment and relationships, you can make them lose their confidence and grip on reality without them ever realizing you are the one pulling the strings. With meticulous manipulation of their physical, social, and symbolic environments, you can methodically destabilize their psyche into decompensation without ever exposing yourself as an active hostile agent. Their own suppressed demons act as inside saboteurs, hijacking their self-control circuits through adroit misattribution. You simply set the pins up. They become architects of their own implosion. 13. Shattering their psyche. The most extreme form of obliteration comes from inflicting a dissociative fugue state, an arcane psychological unraveling where your nemesis severs all connections to their identity, memories, and personal history. Through a precise crucible of traumatic mind gaming, gaslighting, and ego-shattering shocks, you can deprive their conscious mind of all anchoring moorings. Psychologically disrupt their sense of subjective reality through elaborate staged immersions into alternate life narratives until they cannot discern truth from fiction. Systematically unmake their ontological foundations by implicating them in confounding dramatic situations that strain credulity. Destabilize their basic cognitive heuristics until no experiential sense-making capabilities remain reliably operational. Compound the bewildering cerebral disorientation with physiological stresses like sleep deprivation, sensory disruption, isolation, and environmental dislocation to catalyze a full existential short-circuit. As their coherent self-model phrase beyond the breaking point, all that remains is a hollow cognitive blindness, a human consciousness unbound from any grounding personal context. In this abject dissociative fugue, they become an existential nomad, eternally adrift in semiotic purgatory. They have lost their old identity because of many of amnesiac cracks and broken self-continuity. While their body lives on, the subjective being you sought to erase has well and truly departed this reality. An aimless, untethered rook now haunts the cage that once housed your foe. If applied with sufficient Machiavellianism and spiritual disregard for human dignity, these strategies provide the supremely stoic among us with tools to psychologically atomize enemies into submission through sheer psycho-spiritual attrition warfare. Each successive stratagem mounts debilitating existential shock and awe offensives on their mental theater. If you have made it this far, comment down below with the word 100% to confirm that you have received the knowledge from this video. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.